The Solitaire series, episode 35, The Queen of Hearts, by Troy Lambert. Narrated by Troy Lambert. Playing with the Queen of Hearts, no, it ain't really smart. The Joker ain't the only fool who'll do anything for you. Hank DeVito. This is Carl. Hi, Carl, it's Nancy. Nancy? You mean... You saw our doctor, yes? Yeah, Carl flexed his shoulder. He'd just done what he was told. Are we still friends? Nancy asked. Of course. I hope so. There were people in the Solitaire organization, people he worked for, who made Carl nervous. This woman had told him those people were small potatoes compared to her. What had she said? They were piranha. Her organization was the great white shark. She could devour him, turn him into fish shit. Carl believed her. He did not believe she was his friend, but he intended to keep up the ruse. That's good, Carl. What are you doing right now? He looked around. He was sitting in his still shitty apartment, but one he intended to replace soon. A 54-inch television dominated the wall. A soundbar sat underneath it, and until he had muted it to answer the phone, he had been able to feel the beat of every gunshot and the rumble of every tank and helicopter from the first-person shooter game he had been playing, thanks to the subwoofer behind the couch. The furniture in the room reflected the former shittiness of his life. A sagging couch, a thrift store lamp with fringe around the base of the shade, and a slightly off-kilter particle board bookcase with missing chunks of paint and veneer rounded out the Nouveau white trash poor look. There were 3 exceptions. The television and sound system he counted as one. The other one was an area rug, a nice one, a la Jeff Lebowski of the Coen brothers film. He felt like it really tied the room together. The other was a gamer's chair, a rocker really that sat directly on the floor. His was pushed almost all the way against the couch, the only way he could get far enough away from the television to see the entire screen without constantly moving his eyes. Well, nothing, really, he said out loud. His stomach growled, and he realized he'd been so involved in the game he hadn't eaten for hours. The bowl of Doritos next to the chair held only crumbs, and the liter bottle of Mountain Dew had only a small amount left in the bottom. Absently, he wondered what time it was. Today was technically his day off, or so he'd been told. Maybe he should have just let the call go to voicemail. But he had a feeling that would have been a very bad idea. We have a task for you, Nancy said, breaking his thoughts. How soon can you be ready? Well, don't bother to clean the living room, Carl. Just shower and put on something kind of respectable. You might want a hat or something and some sunglasses to hide your eyes. Not the kind you usually wear. Just leave those on your dresser. We'll provide you with some. Carl looked around again. Really looked. Dirty clothes were on one end of the couch. Clean ones were on a basket on the other end. None of them were folded. He'd started laundry with the best of intentions. There are things in the dryer before you ask yourself, Nancy said. Your jeans are clean and wear the blue shirt on top of the basket there. It's nice, but it won't stand out to anyone who is looking. Looking? Carl squinted and could see a blue light at the top of the smart TV he'd just purchased the week before. There was a little hole in the top frame. He'd wondered about it, but hadn't investigated thoroughly. A webcam? He recalled the men who had delivered the television. They hadn't worn uniforms and seemed a bit gruff compared to the polished staff at the store. He'd shrugged it off, but now? Yes, shower, Carl, and get dressed. There is some urgency to our request. Okay, he said, not knowing what else to say. 12 minutes. Be ready. The call ended. Carl stood, first taking a dirty shirt and tossing it at the television. The little blue light was no longer on, but he turned off the television with the remote anyway. He moved towards the shower, then came back and turned off the power strip that powered both the game and the TV. The screen went black right away. He stood, staring at it for just a second. Then he got moving. The television cam was probably not the only surveillance in his home, and if Nancy caught him dragging ass, well, he could only think of one thing she'd told him. We'll turn you into fish shit. It was that and the fact that they'd been watching him that got him moving. The shower, even with a quick shave, only took him 7 minutes. He dressed as instructed, jeans with the blue shirt. He found 2 mismatched socks that were fairly clean. That had been his next planned load. He put on comfortable shoes, but ones that were not too casual, so as not to draw attention. That's what Nancy had told him. He looked in the kitchen. Dishes were stacked everywhere, and he felt compelled to do something about it. Now that he knew someone was watching him, he felt suddenly self-conscious about his filth. But there was no time. He opened the fridge to find it pretty much empty, but grabbed a banana not too far gone and a roll from the top shelf. He slathered some butter on it and ate both quickly. Carl checked his watch. 11 minutes. He rushed back to the bathroom, ran a comb through his hair, and brushed his teeth. He was mid-brush when a knock sounded at the door. The less than friendly kind of knock. The one that told him if he didn't open up, the knocker might just come in anyway. If he was too slow, there might be a consequence. He remembered the steel chair, the fist, the blows he'd endured, only to give in when Nancy talked to him. Well, not give in exactly. But she knew his real name, where he'd come from. She knew everything about him, which meant she could out him to Solitaire. Hell, to everyone. The choice was clear, and now was the moment he would have to pay her back for letting him go. He rushed to the front room and opened the door to find the same 2 men who'd beat him before. Jesus Christ, the one guy was big. He still thought they looked like The Rock and Jason Statham. As the recognition spread across his face, both men smiled. "Hi, Carl. You're to come with us." "Great," he said. "Who's driving?" The 2 men looked at each other and engaged in a quick game of rock, paper, scissors as Carl watched. "He is," The Rock said after Jason won. "Where are we going?" "You silly man. Nancy didn't tell you?" "No." "Good. I'm glad he's driving then," said the mountain of a man. "I love explaining things." He rolled his eyes. "Can I get your names?" Carl asked. "I mean, I could call you The Rock and you Jason, but that didn't go so well last time." "You're right, of course. I'm Victor, and this is, oddly, Jason." "You're kidding." "Nope. He can't live it down either." The smaller man just scowled. "He's also not in the greatest mood." "Shut up," Jason said. "Let's go." Victor stepped outside and held out his hand, gesturing towards the vehicle waiting at the curb. It was a black Chevy truck, lifted with huge tires. The rims were black, too, and Carl smiled. It was something he was planning to buy, too, due to the new money he was making with Solitaire. Had been planning to buy, he corrected himself. This little trip might mean the end of that idea, but maybe he could make money out of this group somehow. If he could manage not to get killed, that was really the key to the whole thing. Carl walked back to the truck ahead of the other 2. He got in the back door of the crew cab, and Victor followed, sliding in beside him. Jason took the wheel. "Buckle up," he said. He wasn't kidding. Carl barely had his belt buckled when the truck roared to life and seemed to leap from the curb simultaneously. "Sorry about that," Victor said. "There is some urgency here, and Nancy told us to make sure you both arrived on time and weren't hurt in the meantime. You do have your card with you, right?" Carl panicked for a second. Had he grabbed his wallet? Yes, he had. He felt it in his back pocket, and he knew the card was with it. It always was. "Yes," he said. "Good. You may need it. Do you know what doors it opens?" "Not entirely. I've just been told if I need to be somewhere, it will open the door for me." "Okay, good. Let me see it." Carl struggled to get the card out of his pocket as they roared around a corner, the force throwing him against the door. But once the 7 of diamonds was in his hand, he passed it to Victor. In almost the same instant, the truck screeched to a halt. "You made good time," Victor told Jason, who nodded. "Keep it running," he said. "Let's go." Carl followed him out and into a small office. The front door said Forbes and Associates in gold letters on the glass. A bell dinged as they went inside. They passed through the waiting room, empty, cloth-covered beige chairs sitting 2 neat rows back to back. A few similar chairs lined the walls, and an empty reception desk faced the room. Dust covered the fake plants here, and he saw an issue of People magazine from 2007 on one table. But he had little time to look. Victor saw his stares, and hustled down a narrow hallway. Closed doors appeared out of the darkness, each with a plastic bin hanging on the wall beside it, like the kind that held medical charts at a doctor's office. But there were no patients here, and apparently no doctors either. The end door opened into a fairly functional office. There was actually a patient bed, the kind he'd seen at the doctor's office he visited at Nancy's command, in the center of the room. But Nancy stood there, looking like anything but a medical professional. She wore the same business suit she'd worn the first time he'd seen her. Dark jacket, light blue blouse, modest but tight pencil skirt, the look of a businesswoman come to do, well, business. "Hi, Carl," she said. "How are you?" Good," he said. "What's going on?" "Have you ever wanted to just run away, Carl? Get a brand new start?" "Well, that's kind of what I already—" "With money, Carl. Lots of it. Wherever you want to go." "I'm sure," he said, seeing the look on her face. It wouldn't do for him to say no. "Do you have his card?" she asked Victor. "I do." He handed it over. She took it over to an odd-looking machine. She flipped a switch. It hummed, and then she flipped it off. She handed the card back to him. "Here's the paperwork," she told Victor and handed him a file. "So, Carl, you are going to get a new life, a new chance to start over. You're going to use your card one last time, and you're going to see a different doctor. Your recovery will be, well, a little painful, but in exchange, you will never need to worry about money again, ever." "Okay. What do I need to do in return?" "I like you, Carl. It's a shame we can never see each other again. You'll wake up in recovery next to a man named Jack after you undergo some minor plastic surgery. That surgery will allow you to escape, and if you follow my instructions, live a wealthy life uninterrupted." Okay. Carl felt it, something in the pit of his stomach. This was not going to go well. It would not end well for him, but he saw little choice. Fish shit, or a life of luxury. When you wake up next to Jack, you will kill him, and then you will leave. "Why?" he asked, realizing how foolish that was to ask. "Jack once had something we wanted. He doesn't have it anymore." "And then I just leave." "Immediately. When you do, call this number. That will be your transportation out of the country. You will have until then to choose your destination." He looked at her, looked at his card. It was no longer the 7 of diamonds. In its place, he held the Queen of Hearts. "Good luck," she said, and Victor led him from the room. Carl felt only one thing: fear. He was more afraid than he'd ever been in his life. Thanks for listening to the Solitaire series, Episode 35, The Queen of Hearts. Next up, Episode 36, The 7 of Clubs.